So welcome to this discussion. Really happy to have you here to talk about coaching in change management and the class that Brian Gorman and I are currently delivering. And I always get excited when I'm in the delivery duration of the class because it feels so exciting to be relating to everybody. So I'm really glad that you're here. What I'd like to do is just give you probably like a 25-minute overview of the class, and then I'd like to do a demonstration with one of you on one of your, a coaching demonstration with one of you as the client on one of your challenges that you might have with a sponsor. So be thinking about if you have a challenge with a sponsor. You don't have to volunteer, but if you want to volunteer, we'll do about a 15-minute coaching and then debrief on it and how it was similar or different from consulting in change management. Okay, for those of you who are not familiar with me or Change Management Review, my name is Teresa Moulton, and I'm really happy to be here. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Change Management Review. A little bit about that is I started this company about 7 years ago with the simple goal of unifying information and making it available to change management professionals across the globe, and where possible, integrating academic research with more common practitioner information. So after doing that for about 6 years, 5.5 years, my colleague Brian Gorman and I, who's a professional certified coach by ICF, we basically said there's a real need for coaching in the change management world. And it turns out we were onto a trend because, and I'll talk about this in a second, the International Coaching Federation and the Association of Change Management Practitioners have had a task force going for 2 years to bring coaching and change management work together. So that's one of the most exciting things that I think is going on right now in our profession. So just to go on, why learn coaching as a change professional? Well, basically, most practitioners see their role as that of a subject matter expert. So they go in as a consultant and don't really think of themselves as a coach or a trusted advisor. So one of the goals of this, emphasizing this content, is to help change professionals think of themselves more as trusted advisors or management consultants. So there's a little bit of a mindset shift. It's proven, and I have some research to share, that coaching skills will increase the impact of your change management work. And the question is, well, how does it do that? Well, one of the key ways that it does that is that it encourages client participation in conversations to increase their accountability and increase their involvement. So as we know, when we increase accountability and involvement, we're going to get more buy-in. And this happens in multiple areas of a program, from the sponsors all the way down to the folks on the team, building the sponsorship coalition, dealing with recalcitrant stakeholders, which is always a favorite thing. So we also, I mentioned the research, but what's happening really is that we're getting people, companies are basically investing in coaching. So one of the things that we want to do is show you some key points here. And the question is, over the past 2 years, which of these activities has your organization offered as a part of the Change Management Initiative? And this was from 2017 and 18, and the boxes really relate to coaching specifically. And the activities that companies added to their change management approach were things like giving access to manager and leader using leadership, using coaching skills. So they built in the coaching. Now, in my experience, when we as change professionals build in the coaching, I think we mean mostly, putting it on the sponsor roadmap, and meaning that we're going to have one-on-one conversations to help sponsors learn how to lead change. That's true. However, by applying the coaching toolkit, you're able to do that in a way that has a higher impact and really really is coaching, using more of a coach approach to how you engage with your clients. Okay, so the other thing they add in is one-on-one coaching with professional coach practitioners. So in some cases, you want to bring in an actual professional coach versus use a coach approach, which is what we're teaching, the coach approach, and what are the skill sets that you can apply with a change management skill set to get the integration of more of a trusted advisor and a management consultant. So there is room to bring in full-time coaches as part of your approach as well. They've also proven that team coaching can really improve the way that a change management program is executed. And you've probably experienced some of this in terms of even doing team development with your project teams. I don't know, I'll date myself here, but 25 years ago, project team development was part of the change management scope of work on a program. So what ended up happening was we were providing that team development, and it strengthened the team to execute on the change. That has not been included in some of the later methodologies. So back to what companies are adding, they're also adding work group coaching. Work group coaching is different than team coaching, because team coaching is where there's obviously a shared goal and you're coaching the people on the team individually and as a group to achieve a team goal. And work group coaching is more where you're actually facilitating people, but you're using more of a targeted approach to getting involvement in the conversation. Okay, so this one is of what was present in your organization. How helpful were the activities in achieving the goals of the change management initiative? Again, 4 more things to emphasize. The top one is 78%, and the topic is work group coaching with a professional coach practitioner. So I thought this was very interesting because, again, using work group coaching techniques, the change practitioner was able to really increase the ability of the goals of the outcome. The next one is one-on-one coaching with a professional coach and practitioner. So 78% found that the impact of having a cadre of professional coaches come in to be part of the change program was really helpful. The third one is access to managers/leaders using coaching skills. So again, with a sponsorship roadmap and then the transfer of some of these coaching skills to the change leadership and the change coalition on the program influenced the success of a change initiative. In this case, was 70% thought that. And then lastly, team coaching with professional coach practitioner. We talked about that before, and that had a 67% impact on the success of a change initiative. So I think this slide really makes the case for why coaching skills are very important to change professionals. And one of the things that I just wanted to point out from the trends that I see in the industry or the profession, there's a lot of methodologies that are being cobbled together or being sold more in a cookie cutter approach, which is fine because we all need somewhere to start. But those methodologies only cover about 60% of the full body of knowledge that you need to embody to be a successful change practitioner. And part of that other 40% is really employing the management consulting or the trusted advisor skill set. And that's what this course focuses on. It doesn't teach a methodology. It teaches using your interactions and applying it to your change management situations to actually increase your value for every conversation and have a higher impact on the work that you do. So who is this class designed for? It's designed for experienced change practitioners, experienced project managers who are moving into the change management field for both internal and external professionals. This is not a course where beginners come. 50% of the value of this course is in working with your colleagues to hear about what their challenges are, provide advice on how they might be able to solve it using coaching, and then vice versa. So I think that's really important to note. What change management methodology does this course design work with? It really is methodology agnostic. So this is not, again, about a methodology. This is about building the skill set to apply the methodology in a way that's going to have more impact. So when is the class being held? The class is comprised of 8 half-day sessions on Tuesdays each week. We also bring the class into organizations if you're interested. But what supporting materials and activities are a part of this class? So you'll get, all sessions are taped, so you'll be able to catch up if you have to miss one or so. You get pre-work and handouts, and then you practice coaching in between those 8 weeks. So between week 1 and week 2 and week 3, you're paired up with a partner and you meet to practice the coaching in between. And that's how we bring the learning forward into the course itself. One thing that I think is really important is that by the time you finish this course, you'll feel fantastic and more confident in having a sponsor, program team, or recalcitrant stakeholder conversation. That's one of the biggest benefits that people cite as they get into this class. So let me share a little bit of the course curriculum with you. Excuse me for the drink. I have no air conditioning where I am. So our course objectives are basically to clarify the distinctions between consulting, coaching, mentoring, and also therapy. So we want to really kind of cull out the benefits of coaching and the skills affiliated with it. And when you do coach and when you don't coach, when you do consult and when you could coach. And the other thing that I think is important in terms of our objectives is that we're really looking at the application of the International Coaching Federation's competencies. So this course was designed with the international or ICF competencies in mind. You're going to learn new approaches to gaining a deep understanding of your clients and how best to support them. Once you put this skill set in your toolkit, you will find that even your meeting facilitation is much more effective. And then lastly, we're going to discuss and use practical examples, like I mentioned before, of change management interactions and how they improve with a coaching approach. So example is conversations with sponsors that are not bought in, conversations with sponsors who don't take the coaching that you're providing, conversations with resistant stakeholders who are throwing a real knot in the work and digging their heels in, conversations with the PMO when the PMO doesn't understand change management and is not seeing that it has the credibility to actually add value to the project. We'll cover how to sell change management using a coaching approach within your organization and other things. So a couple of other things that we really aim to do is build a greater skill set and strengthen your relationship with coaching sponsors. As I had mentioned before, it's often becomes kind of a tactical activity, to work with sponsors. We really enjoy it, and we're consulting with them about the work that we're bringing forward as a change management consultant. But are we really getting into the depth of what the sponsors care about? Are we really locking in their involvement and engagement in learning the change leadership behaviors they need to learn to take the actions they need to take to sponsor the work? As I mentioned before, we're going to learn how and when to apply one-on-one group and team coaching. So that's a couple of approaches that we'll bring forward. We'll gain insights into how to successfully integrate coaching into your current change management practice. So we will definitely be focusing again on the application of coaching skills to your real world situations. A couple of samples of key learning topics are that we're really, as I mentioned, talking about the difference between coaching, therapy, mentoring, and consulting. We'll talk about when to coach, when to consult. We won't go into anything about therapy, and we'll cursorily mention mentoring. We talked about this. We're going to talk about the power of coaching and change management. We're going to teach you a coaching process, a 5-step coaching process that gives you some flow to the conversation, whether it's a 10-minute conversation or it's a half-an-hour conversation, or whether it's a team conversation or a group conversation. This is the approach that you will use to coach the clients that are a part of your work. Again, I mentioned already that we're aligned with the International Coach Federation core competencies. we're going to provide you with lots of tools to support your coaching. Tools around how to ask powerful questions. What are some powerful questions? How do you actually exert influence if you need to in a conversation so that the client has the space that they need to actually explore the topic at hand? How do you actually coach while you're consulting? How do you make that transition back and forth? What do you say to the client, and what do you have to say up front to make that okay with the clients? We'll be talking about a couple of models like conversational intelligence, and that's from Judith Glazer's work. And one of the things that it does really well is it breaks down trust into practical and implementable activities. We'll talk about emotional intelligence and how it plays into the coaching work on a change project. Obviously, we'll talk about cultural intelligence, but just like I had mentioned before about team development not being part of the current methodologies, you'll find coaching, cultural intelligence work more in the organizational development realm. You won't find it as much in the change management realm. You might get a one-page cultural assessment or something like that. But then the question is, what do you do with that? How do you interpret a cultural intelligence assessment to make it part of your design for the overall change strategy you're putting together? So we're going to talk about those things and how coaching can really help you use these tools and approaches to move your work forward. We'll again talk about applying these core competencies to sponsor and practitioner relationships. We talk a lot about relationships, as I mentioned before, all different levels of relationships, all different types of relationships, how to have difficult conversations, how to reframe sponsor conversations, and we give examples of that. Tough sponsor challenges, team coaching I mentioned, group coaching I mentioned, virtual coaching, which is pretty much what we do right now in the pandemic world. So those are some of the sample topics that we go over. One of the things that I wanted to do is a demonstration for you, but let me ask if there are any questions, and I would invite you to just unmute your microphone and ask the questions, and we'll get those answered.
Hi, it's Mona. Can you see me?
I can.
Oh, great. Okay. For some reason, I've lost my screen with the picture, with the video on it. Anyway, my question is, as I mentioned to you when we started, I'm from Victoria, BC, and 8:30 Eastern would be 5:30 a.m. my time. So right. I was curious whether you were planning on offering this course at a time that's a bit less, a bit more conducive to for those of us on the West Coast attending.
You know, that's on the table right now, and we are going to be doing that in the short run. Right now, we're filling the classes pretty well in the in this time frame, but we want to make this accessible to everyone around the world, because we've had people attend from South Africa, Guyana, Ireland, Japan. We have someone in this class from the Philippines, and I'm just like, you know, God bless you. How do you do that? So yes, long answer to your short question. We are going to be accounting for time frames very shortly.
Oh, awesome. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yep. Who else has a question? No questions. Okay, let me ask you a question. How well did this presentation or discussion so far answer your questions about a coaching skills class for change professionals?
I thought it was really good. This is Vicki.
Hi, Vicki.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good. I'm good, thank you. I thought it was really great. Would you mind putting, by the end of the session, your schedule back up again?
Sure. I have it on the next slide, so we absolutely will do that.
Yeah, I thought it was very helpful. I did want to ask, but I don't want to give other people time. do you mind talking a little bit about how you find the coaching helps with resistance management?
Sure. So
there's all kind of different resistance, that you run into. So.
Yes. So one of the things the coaching approach does is it helps you, and I don't want to say that this is all of what coaching is because it isn't, but the conceptual selling process of ideas becomes just a natural flow for conversations with resistant stakeholders. So, you'll educate and have the conversation up front with a stakeholder, understand their issue and all that, then really get down to their objections or pain points, present some of the benefits, and then basically the conversation usually closes itself. So that's one piece. That's not the coaching process that we teach, but that's just one of the ways that I use the conversational technique to handle resistance. It works in groups, it works with individuals, and it also works with messaging. So, what do your presentations and communication activities cover? Are they just informational? Are they set up in a way that can actually influence and motivate people? And when you're reviewing the presentation or the communication materials with your stakeholders, how can you use coaching skills to make those integrate more into the audience understanding and ownership of the topics at hand?
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Other folks?
Hi, my name is Sharon. I'm from
Sharon.
Ottawa. I'm from Ottawa, Canada as well. So both ends of the country.
Yes.
I'm happy to see this connection made because I am, I'm certified in the change management, but I'm also a career coach. So I was curious, and maybe you could expand on more. You're following the ICF framework. Is there any direct connection to that association and program?
Great question. No, there's no direct connection to that association and program. We were planning to go for certification for that, but what we found is that change professionals are more interested at this point to use the coach approach, like building the skills to add on to their toolkit to round it out versus becoming full-blown coaches. However, one of the things that ACMP and ICF task force is working on is, do you really need a coaching certification in addition to a change management certification? So that's one of the open topics in the profession right now. We're aligned with the ICF core competencies because we wanted to make sure that we were covering the material in the proper way so that, our examples and our techniques are real coaching techniques and real coaching skills. I taught a course at Cambridge College, a graduate level course for 3 years on personal and professional coaching. And what we used there before the ICF really was created was an amalgamation of company methodologies, right? But then, and that was in 2003. So then, as you know, 2007, 2006, the ICF started picking up steam. So, we're trying to align as much as we can with it. And over time, we may actually, become an option for them for credit.
Perfect. I'm happy to hear that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Hi, Eduardo.
How are you doing, Teresa? Thank you. Listen, just got my attention. Why would you need a certification in coaching or change management to perform the job right?
Why would you need a certification in either of them?
Yes,
okay.
To perform the job right.
Okay, so that answer has two components to it. One is you don't really need to have the certification to do the work, right? But the certification does give you an understanding of the common knowledge and common language that the profession has evolved into. So for example, the ACMP standard is the process orientation approach to doing change management. If you take a ProSci certification, you're getting into the process and the approach a little bit. But what the second answer to your question, Eduardo, is that if you're looking for work now, most organizations are requiring a change management certification, and most organizations that are going to have you just do coaching will require a coaching certification. But what we're talking about is doing change management work and adding the coaching skills to the change management work, so the full set of capability is greater as change professionals. I don't know if that answers your question.
Not really. The thing is, because you know that their track record doesn't necessarily help to the certs.
It does.
Despite the certification of many people, still most of these strategies are wrongly deployed and unsustainable.
Yes, and that's what they're finding right now with change management certifications, that people are going and getting the certification in 3 days, but then they show up at the job that they have, and they don't have the context or the experience to actually understand the organizational dynamic that's affiliated with the program that's operating within it. And so that's one of the gaps that we're also trying to fill, is to try to give more of that consultative skill set to folks, so that as they go through and experience change management programs, they are looking at them from the full picture. So to just answer your question, certifications are not required. I have many colleagues with 35 to 45, even 50 years of experience in this work. And they are working and adding a ton of value. So it's kind of similar to the psychotherapy profession. You know, when psychotherapists started getting certified back in the 70s and the 80s, there were people doing organizational psychology, and they were doing other types of personal development work. And then everybody became certified because it gave them a common language to actually, converse in, and it gave the market, this is the big reason, it gave the market a way to tangibly understand and explain what this work is. So that's probably more than you bargained for, but those are my thoughts on that right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. What else? Don't let me off that easy.
Hey, Teresa, this is Christy. I put this in chat, but if you mentioned ProSci, so is there any talks with, anyone like that and beefing up their training with the addition of your coaching work?
We're not having conversation with ProSci, but our work definitely dovetails with what they're doing, because you can use any technical methodology to do change management work, which is mostly what they teach. And then we provide the softer skills and the strategy skills and all that kind of stuff that goes together with that or any other methodology.
Okay. Yeah, we're a ProSci organization here. And so as we are developing our change networks, and a lot of people are going through that certification. So maybe I'll ping you offline, but if there's any kind of conversation around how your work does dovetail that could help us get some lift. That's good to know.
Absolutely. And what I'm seeing in the market, as you probably know, is that many organizations are adopting ProSci, which is great, because now we all talk the same language.
Right.
And as practitioners, we go in to execute on the work. We know what it is. The clients all get a common understanding. And then it comes back to the same challenge. Okay, I have the methodology. How do I embark on this initiative? How do I bring the intangible qualitative components of the art of change management consulting to the table?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I've got a background in organizational development, and I need that just as much as I do the technical change skills. I think the OD background is super helpful, and it's very hard to accomplish without it. But this is interesting. I appreciate you doing this today.
Oh, no problem. In fact, one of the things that another objective of Change Management Review was to bring organizational development skills and change management skills together.
Good.
Because that's just my hypothesis on what's needed based on what I've observed in the market so far.
Yeah, I would agree. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good questions. Okay, I just got the chat up. I wasn't seeing the chat. Do we plan to offer this course a bit later in the day? Okay, we covered that, but we are going to look at that. Would you please remind of the link that leads to the, yes, the registration page is definitely on the next slide. The learning objectives were not completely clear. It would help if they were stated as these are what participants will be able to do. Okay, that's great feedback. That's great feedback. So at a high level, what people will be able to do as a result of this course is they will be comfortable having conversations with either sponsors, project team, or stakeholders, dealing with the ambiguity of the client itself. So what do I mean by that? More clearly, you'll be having more effective conversations and building more understanding and buy-in in every conversation that you have. So that's one thing you'll be able to do. The other thing you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to better facilitate meetings, because the participation that you have in a meeting as a leader of the meeting, it can be at the high level, right, at a more superficial level, or you can work with each person as they contribute by asking questions that get them to really own and understand what they mean by what they're saying. So you'll have a higher impact on group coaching and team coaching. The third thing that you'll have is you will be able to have conversations in your personal life that are more meaningful, because this can be applied to personal coaching or professional coaching. I think you will be able to have a higher impact on your change management work, specifically around, we mentioned sponsorship coaching, but also around any communication events that involve engagement, because the way that you start thinking about the process of coaching really does impact the way that you communicate and message out different pieces of information regarding that. So those are four things that people will be able to do. I mean, if we want to kind of build on that, you'll also have a new cohort of colleagues who you've kind of bonded with, and you can take with you out of class. And you'll learn from everybody's experience. So that's one of the benefits, is that if you're an internal practitioner and you haven't gone from company to company as much in your career, you'll get a cross-industry view of how change management works and is applied in various industries, and how that impacts various cultures and what techniques are better used in some versus others. I don't know if it's not a perfect answer to your question, but that's off the top of my head what I've heard from people and what we've tried to do with the class.
So, Teresa, I have a question that builds on a previous one.
Sure.
About resistance, and mine is a little more nuanced around different levels of resistance within the same group.
Yes. And
what will the techniques be to manage that kind of spectrum?
Okay, so that's a great question. So you're probably going to use a combination of consulting and coaching, and the percentage of coaching versus consulting will probably be higher for the more resistant stakeholders. So what does that look like? What questions do you ask? How do you position your consulting work so it's still having impact? But how do you ensure that you are really getting to the core issue that person cares about? And then what do you do with that? Once you understand the issue, what do you do with that? I mean, you've surfaced it. Okay, great. I'll put it on my change impact grid. I'll put it on my, wherever I'm going to put it. But what do I do with this now? And so it makes your conversations actionable for the person that you're speaking with. And the theory is that if you can get somebody who's resistant to just take even one simple step forward, it starts them in the momentum of becoming less resistant. And so the percentage of coaching skills to consulting skills changes depending on the level of resistance you have. Does that make sense? Okay, great. What else? These are awesome questions.
Hey, Teresa, can I ask something else? I heard you mention about the mindset. How does this work out that area of mindset? How do you help people to develop that mindset? And how do you know that people is fit for the coaching skills?
You know, that's a good question. I don't think that I can really, as a professor or a teacher of this, I can't really assess someone's fit. Because if someone isn't able to or comfortable with holding the emotional space and the practical space for someone to explore what things mean to them, then they're probably not a great fit at this point, or they need to start at the beginning and work up. So the mindset piece is something that you basically get as you're practicing coaching. And what you're really shifting from is providing answers as a consultant to having the client actually provide the answers. So instead of going in with a deck and trying to, answer the question, okay, I've got this on page 25. What you're really able to do is get them to ask for page 25 or get them to understand the concepts that you're covering. And so it becomes demand driven from the client instead of consultant driven in a push. It becomes more of a pull. So that's an example of the mindset. I think the answer, bottom line, Eduardo, is that the mindset shifts over time as you practice, and it shifts from providing answers to letting the client provide the answers. Great. Okay, we answered the ProSci question. Please check the chat. I am now doing that. Okay, it's great to see you too. Oh yeah, we've got some great, I love change is personal. It totally is. That's my colleague, Brian Gorman. That's his like tagline, all change is personal. And he'll go on for hours about it, but not in this class. So what other questions do you have? Okay, so why don't we close off the question piece and, oh my goodness, where did everybody go? I have to, somehow the chat took over my world. So what I want to do is just get the answer. Participants are saying all these things in terms of adding, about value of adding it to the change management toolkit, the confidence they're getting. And I think what we're doing as a profession is we're moving our skill set closer to the trusted advisor and some of the more advanced consulting skills. And people now feel much better having difficult conversations. So those are the three major things people are saying. So how do you register? You just go to changemanagementreview.com and then you can /coaching skills, or you can look, there'll be an advertisement on the homepage, or you can look at the training tab and it will be right there for you. We keep the class size really small so that everybody gets individual attention. So for example, when you do the practice sessions between week 1, week 2, between each week, Brian or I attend those and provide feedback and coaching to you while you're practicing with your partner. So this is very hands-on, and we really care about this. So it's one of our key motivations. So we want to do as much as we can to help people understand it. But let's come back to a quick demonstration, and this won't be perfect. It's on the fly, but I'd like to show some coaching on a sponsorship situation or any other situation that you have in the workplace that is a challenge for you. Is there anybody who has come up with one and is willing to be the client in the role play? If not, that's okay. It's kind of fun. Okay, you can do it. No? Okay, I'll have to call on somebody. no, I'm not going to call on someone because we don't really know each other.
I hate to throw myself on the grenade, but I'll do it.
Oh, I was just going to call on you. How perfect is that?
I'm always the over talker anyway. Okay, so I have this current situation that was part to what Joe was also leading to as well. There's a group, there's a project. It's insane, very chaotic, and there's a lot of turnover. And I've been brought in to kind of clean up the disaster. I have met with senior leadership, and a big part of the problem is the culture. The culture being there's leadership and their superior, and they shout out the orders and everybody panics and runs. And consequently, nobody's like aligning on what's the most effective way to move forward. And they're sending out comms without even talking to the people they're sending out comms for, things like that. So how can I meet with, say, 3 executive leaders, and even if I do one at a time, and say, you know, we've got to get this under control on this side without saying we need to get this under control on this side, because that's really where the problem generates from initially.
Okay, so that's a good setup for the conversation. Now, will you be having this conversation with, can you pick one person that you'd start having the conversation with?
Right, I can have it with one of the sponsor.
Okay.
And he did that last week. He just sort of hijacked a call and said, how about you do this, and these things aren't even necessary till next year. And by throwing that in, the people that have to review it will have so much work on their plate, but then they're already overloaded, you know. So to come back to him and say, we need to back this up and slow things down.
Right. I hate that conversation. I just had it like 2 weeks ago.
Sorry, it's a tough one, but that's exactly the kind of
really,
thing we're into. Yeah.
It is. Okay. So Vicki, thank you for taking the time for our meeting. I know that your schedule is really busy and sometimes you have to move it around. So thank you for the time today. One of the things I wanted to do was let you know that in addition to consulting, I also do some coaching. And what that would do for you is allow you to get more feedback from me and more, I think, make the type of work we're doing together more applicable to you as an individual, as well as the organization. Mm-hmm. So I have something that I'd like to speak with you about. And I'm wondering if you'd be comfortable with me using more of a coach approach to cover that.
You would be that direct with it. I'm just asking that because that's really
in context. So I would have already, in this case, set up how we're going to communicate and how we're going to work together at the beginning of the relationship. Okay. Good question.
Sorry to throw you off on your
No.
So what would that look like? I mean, how do you think you could be coaching me?
Well, for example, we have an issue with how fast the work can get done and the expectation at the sponsorship level for wanting to go faster. So if we were to explore this together, what I'd want to know is, you know, what's your perception of that challenge regarding this work?
Well, we've got deadlines. We know that this is going to give us some ROI. We've been telling the people they've got to deliver. I know some people quit. They're just going to have to figure it out. Mm-hmm. So we just think, you know, we just keep them on, know the focus is ultimately we're going to make a lot of money out of this. And that's where we're going. And that means jobs. So that's where.
Okay. Great. So what's the worst case scenario for you if the project doesn't get completed?
Well, we'll have to explain to our stockholders what happened with the investment of the $17 million that we've put into this and why it's not getting done. And we might have to lay some people off. So, you know, it could be problems down the road.
Right. So how important is the success of this program to you?
It's a really large investment. It's highly visible. A lot of people are looking at it. We see it as an opportunity to make a better environment for the folks that will be using the program. And so we want to get it done so they can start using it. And we can begin to accumulate records and have everything on the same page instead of multiple applications doing the work. So for us, it gives us power to really move forward in the marketplace. And I think that's beneficial for some of our folks that you need an application that's more relevant.
Okay, great. What's your experience with leading these types of initiatives?
Well, in the past, we've tried to bring as many people in to weigh in on it, but we find that slows them down.
Mm-hmm.
With this time, we're just keeping a few people involved, and we're kind of bringing people in as we need to get their opinion. But we did find with that last one, it took several years because we asked too many people what they thought. This time, that's why we're finding keeping it to a few people, we can get it done faster. We did have another application we did it with, and granted, we had to go in and make a few updates later, which were an additional expense. However, we did at least get the initial application built.
Right. So what I'm noticing in this conversation is that there's misalignment between how you and the organization are valuing or interpreting change and what the best practice research shows. So, for example, I'm hearing that you really want to move quickly, and you want to really quickly. And one of the things that the best practice research shows is that if you take some more time, you go slow to go fast. It doesn't have to be a lot more time, but you actually create a little bit more room in the program approach that you'll be able to get everybody on board faster. So fewer people will leave, more people will want to be involved, and your perception of as a leader will be improved. What do you think about that?
And it sounds like a good idea, but where and how would we go faster, go slower to go faster? What are the kind of places that you would even recommend that?
Right. So one of the things that some of my clients have done when I've had this conversation with them is they've basically separated the program plan for implementing the system, or putting that process design in place, from the change management. So instead of having the change management parallel the exact program plan or the agile approach that you're using, we actually build in room for people to learn how to accept and understand this change. So we're acknowledging the fact that the soft stuff becomes hard stuff if we push by it. And that's been statistically proven to be true. So that's an example of what you could do. And you could look at it in each phase based on how long it is and, the type of work that's being completed.
Actually, that sounds pretty good. And maybe that is worth looking a little further into. Is this something you can build with us together right now?
Yes.
Downtime would that mean if we have to do something like that?
Well,
downtime?
One of the things that I'd want to do with the program manager is sit down and review the stakeholder analysis and the change impact analysis that I showed you last week, and really figure out where the stakeholders, the highest impacted stakeholders, are in understanding the change. And so based on that assessment, I will be able to then work with the program manager and come back and answer that question.
Okay, great. Well, let's go ahead and talk a little more about it. Let's get together with the program manager and see what we can do.
Okay, great. Thanks for meeting with me.
Thank you. Thanks.
Good job, Vicki.
Thank you, Teresa. I learned a lot already.
So what did everyone notice about the coach approach? How is that different from the consulting approach?
You're actually letting them hear themselves, I think. Their own thoughts, like talk in their own terms.
Right. And how does that impact their participation in the conversation?
I think I thought it's part of the answer myself.
Right.
I'm contributing, like I contributed to it rather than somebody pushing it around.
Yep. Great. What else did people notice about the coach approach versus a straight consulting approach?
Yeah, I definitely feel like Vicki was on the hot seat a bit with like, you weren't just coming in like with the answer. I feel like a lot of times we are asked to be the expert and just tell me what I need to know. And then they can choose whether or not they want to follow it. But in that example, Vicki was definitely probably more engaged because, as she said, she had to come up with it. You led her to it.
Right. Exactly. So again, the more involvement, the more buy-in. Awesome. What else?
The other thing I really noticed, Simona, is your role was very exploratory. And it's kind of a discovery mindset as opposed to, I mean, you did bring in some of the best practices at an appropriate moment, but you certainly came into that conversation with an exploratory or a discovery-based mindset.
Yes, very much so. And that's one of the core skills that we want to teach. And it sounds really weird, but we really have to emphasize the concept of curiosity, because I don't know about for you, but I really have to manage my mind to focus all the time. So what are the things that I do to keep myself in the game and stay curious? Because if I stay curious about what's going on for them, then I can be a good coach. So that's one of the concepts that we have. So yeah, exploratory, very good. What else?
I think so much of what we do is about trust as practitioners, is about trust building. And and especially Vicky's very speedy, fast, let's just go, let's do it kind of comment. Building trust with somebody who generally likes to go fast means inviting them in instead of telling them what to do. At least that's what I saw you do, and that's generally my experience as well.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. And Vicky really played that role well, didn't she?
Really well.
Awesome.
Maybe
what
it's
else?
true. Maybe.
See how it's a little therapeutic?
Yeah, there you go. That's what I said I learned. Thank you.
Exactly. What else did you notice that's different between coaching and consulting?
Yeah, hi, this is Julie. I noticed at the very beginning, you kind of explained what you're about to do, and you kind of got permission sort of from Vicky. Yep. So, you know, with consulting, I don't think you tell them like, hey, I'm going to consult you right now.
Right.
So I guess from your experience, is this like a necessary step to kind of like, hey, I'm going to try this thing out? Like, is it okay?
No, it's not necessary, because with the coach approach, you're basically using coaching skills, like which might be the mindset and some of the questioning, and you just kind of flow into the conversation. However, when you start an engagement, there's a huge opportunity for relationship contracting to say what I just said, you know, about setting the table for the value that you bring to the value you bring to the table, being both as a consultant and expertise in change management, but also expert in change management, but also as a coach to help improve the participation in the acceptance of the change across the organization. If you get to have that conversation, then you don't have to set it up the way I did. And if you haven't had that conversation, what change professionals do is they basically blend in some of the technique as they go along. If you're a fully certified coach and your whole assignment is coaching, then defining that relationship they call contracting. So that's part of the coaching process. So that definitely happens.
Yeah, that makes total sense, because I find a lot of the time my clients are like, I don't need coaching. Like, no. And there's kind of like a negative connotation around it, or like, we don't need that. And so one of my things that I'm trying to learn is like, how do you coach them without them knowing that they're being coached, and kind of like weaving it into your interactions naturally.
Right. Because coaching is a way to have a conversation as much as, it's a technique for your toolbox. Doing a coaching assignment is different than using coaching skills in your consulting. And one of the things, just to add on to what you mentioned, Julie, is that coaching has sometimes got a negative reputation in the company because it was initially associated with performance management. So what's now happening is, and this has been happening for like 10 or 12, 15 years, is that the coaching profession is trying, and I think successfully has done, moving it from performance management conversations to professional development conversations. So that's just a little context.
Yeah, great call it. Thanks, Teresa.
You're welcome.
This is Yvette, and along those same lines, it was definitely how you approach it with your language. that really allowed Vicki not to be on the offensive. I just came out of some work with a colleague, and he came in and he was trying to help us to do a new way of doing something, right? But just his whole language is, we don't do this, and we don't do this, and we have to do a better job at this. And you never took Vicki there. While you were aiding, you were allowing her to think through where her benefits would be, what she really wanted to accomplish, and where she could have some opportunity. So the whole tone of the conversation is what I really appreciate, because I've really been doing some introspective as to why was this engagement with this other person so, for lack of better words, ticking me off.
Why is it triggering me?
Right, exactly. And I was like, because of the language that he was using, and his approach. It's like, I'm one who's open. I do change management all the time, but it's just the way he approached it was just so poorly. He got great engagement with the folks that we wanted to get engaged, but to get me to come along with him, I had to do a lot of introspective work to get over that hurdle to say, okay, this is where we really focus, this is where we're going, and you do all this other work internally later off to the side, just so we could get there. But your tone was perfect.
Oh, good. Thank you. And one of the things that we cover in the course is value alignment. So helping you as a consulting coach identify what your values are and what do you do if they're out of alignment with a client. I had a client where it was the COO of a company, and I went to the first meeting with the team, and basically everyone just kind of was robotic. And then when he didn't agree, he screamed as loud as he could across the table. And I was like, what the heck is this? So after that meeting, we were starting our engagement, and I had to say to him up front, one of my concerns initially is that I'm not sure we're on the same page on how we view getting this work done. Do you have a few minutes to talk about that? And so then I used a coach approach to kind of get into that, and got him to the point where he didn't realize he wasn't self-managing, even though he was being so loud. So it's interesting. It's interesting how it works out. So we're about out of time, but I really appreciate everyone taking the time to come and learn about this. And if you're interested in signing up, we're having, again, it starts on the 7th of June, and then we have it again in the fall. But we added the June session in because people were interested and the classes got full. So welcome if that's something you're interested in. If it's not, you have further questions, just email me. I'm at teresa@changemanagementreview.com. And also, if you just have want to brainstorm on something that you're going through or dealing with, I'm happy to pick up the phone and do that, or pick up the Zoom, I guess, and do that. So thank you very much. I really appreciate your time today.